It's the greatest war known to man. Absolute brutality, guerrilla warfare, tears. I'm not talking about Ukraine or Palestine. I'm talking about your wife. I'm talking about those fights with your wife that make you want to full metal jacket yourself in the fucking face. Today on the show is a man between marriages, Ken Krantz, and we are here talking about the brutal fights you have with your spouses. And this, a lot like your wife randomly telling you have a small dick, is a bit too much. When I first started having edibles, like, it was just from people.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And it was before, like, dispensaries were everywhere. And, you know, for the most part, like, people don't really know how to, like, get the most THC out of, like, when they make the butter. So it's, like, usually wasn't, like, crazy strong. And then one day, my wife and I had these, like, gummies from someone we didn't really know. And, I mean, my fucking brain melted. It was like I felt fine, and then I got up, and my whole fucking world just twisted. Yeah. Like, I felt everything shift, and I had like a horrible night. And my wife barely felt anything. Same gummies, and I had like this horrible night. I was like, I had these like two tracks of thought at the same time. I was like, it's almost like I knew where I was, but then there's another like paranoid. That sort of, I never had like a paranoid high before from smoking. Yeah. But I had that, like, the one that everyone talks about where you like think everything's kind of like closing in on you and stuff. I had this horrible night. And then my wife, in the morning, I was like, I had a horrible night last night. I was like, were you okay? She was like, yeah, it's fine. We took him again. I don't know why I decided to do it again, but we did it again. And I felt nothing. And she had a horrible night.
Yeah.
Because they're just the distribution, I guess.
The distribution. Yeah. So if you get them from the dispensary, you know exactly what you're getting. And they're never too strong. Actually, outside of these caramels, I don't even mess with too many edibles from the dispensary. Right. But there's a place that I go to that's not, you know, technically a dispensary, but like if you know the handshake, they'll bring out you know the goods that they're not selling to everyone
it's like
else.
Like in Manhattan, all the like sort of head shops that are like, you know, in the back.
And they sell these gummy bears. And I love the gummy bears, but it's like Russian roulette because if it's like it's 20 gummy bears and maybe the entire bag's 500 milligrams, but you don't know how it's dispensed.
You don't know where that 500 lives.
So it's like Russian roulette. So it's like some of these gummy bears are duds. You eat one and literally nothing ever happens.
And you don't know if that's going to happen or when it's going to happen with an edible. Right. It like depends on how much you ate that day, when it will kick in. So you can make the mistake, right, and go for a second one and blow your asshole out.
I
like just lose your fucking mind.
I took one of these gummy bears. I had a show a couple months ago, and the show was at 8:00 at night. Yeah, and I took the gummy bear at like noon. Okay, and it was like if that bag was 500 milligrams, like 450 of them were in this gummy bear. And
just fucking.
I was a fucking puddle. Right up until like I started to think like I'm not even going to be able to get through this show tonight. And
you kind of like the adrenaline sobered you up a little bit, like that kind of thing. You know, that happens when you're a kid, like when you're like, oh fuck, I'm drunk, I can't even fucking see straight, and then like the cops come and you're all like, hello sir. You know, you just like straighten up right away. Yeah,
you turn into like Will Ferrell from Old School when he has to answer that question.
I had that happen to me with like feeling faint and sick at Gotham once. Because I had like some health issues I hadn't figured out yet, and I thought I was gonna like pass out, and I just like stole a pitcher of water from this table of young comics and just chugged the whole jug thing. I was like, I'm gonna pass out. I just felt so sick. I didn't know what was going on with me. I was like severely dehydrated. I had no idea. Yeah. And then like it just like I hear my name and it like instant feel better. Yeah. For the moment. Yes. You know, just for the set. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? How
I watched the footage back because I have the tape of it, and I am a little shaky for sure. Like you could see it in my hand that I'm like, it's not like nerves. It's like I'm like weak. Yeah. But I didn't feel that on stage, and I went through it. I think physically I was just about to collapse. Yeah. But it just like sort of sobered up kind of thing, you know?
It's funny. It's funny how that. I remember having like some horrible 24-hour virus, and it hit hours before I was dude to headline a show, and it was like a show in the middle of Pennsylvania. Like it wouldn't have been easy for them to replace me.
Right.
At the very last minute.
I have to do this type.
So I just went to the hotel and I was like, I got to do it. And I remember sitting in the green room. I was like Michael Jordan's flu game. Like I was in the green room just sweating buckets and trying to get as much water down and thinking there was no way I'd be able to get through it. But then it's like the second they call your name and you walk out, it's like it all disappears.
Yeah, the Bulls music hits. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. And you're putting up serious numbers.
Yeah, and
that.
I had a much better set than I would have thought I could have under those conditions. And then I remember as soon as it was over, I had to go back to the hotel and collapse.
Yeah. Then it almost crashes down harder after the fact. Yeah. When you're sick and you're like, or high or whatever the fucking thing is, right? Like you could sober up, like your body will just go into overdrive. It's like like a mom lifting a car to save her kid. It's everything. It's like this like other gear that you can't untap if you want to. You can't tap into that if you just want to.
No.
It just happens.
No.
It's just a sort of supernatural thing that our bodies can do. And then when you come down off of that, you're like, everything's like, what?
Yeah.
It feels so much worse. Ken, so I don't know you personally too well. Are you married or do you have a girl? Are you married?
It's, you asked me. So I actually,
when you ask someone this question and that's their intro and it's not just yes or no, it means, in the old days of Facebook, like the relationship's complicated.
So I am divorced as of yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Juneteenth. Ironic. Sometimes the comedy gods just tee it up for you.
Yeah.
Like it became like I get.
What was the race of your wife? Does that play it?
No. She's a white lady, but I feel like I get it though. Like let freedom ring. Like I'm with you. I'm shaking off the shackles.
The divorce was so brutal that you switched races for a day. It rocked you to your core.
No, it wasn't brutal. It just
exhausting.
It's tiring.
How long were you married?
It takes a lot. We were married maybe 12 years, and a lot of them were good years.
Mm-hmm.
We just grew apart.
Right.
But I've been separated for four years now. I've been out of the house, so I'm seeing somebody. So I'm laughing when you asked because I know this is coming out in September or this coming out
August.
In August.
Yeah, in August probably.
So by the time this comes out, so I got divorced yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm getting married next week.
Okay.
So you asked, like, I literally have a 9-day window.
Are you going to just make these next 9 days like your bachelor party? Just live it up. You only got a few fucking days.
I have, I don't know if you know the comedian John Moses, but he's a good
of him. Yeah,
he's a really good friend of mine. But he's referring to my girlfriend as my 9-day fiance.
Right. So obviously, like you were split, right? Like you were not officially divorced,
right?
With this other person, and then as that got finalized, you were like, I'm afraid to be single. How did you get engaged? Before you're divorced.
So
officially.
Yeah, I do. And you know what the funniest thing is? I'm not even the record holder in my family.
Of what gaps between?
Yeah, my dad. So my dad, when he got divorced, so my dad left my mom for her best friend. And so they had a much uglier divorce than I did.
Sure.
But
that'll do it.
It'll do it. But he got divorced like on a Wednesday and married on Need like he had like a 2-day. He had like a 2-day gap.
That's wild, man.
Yeah. But
you need look. I mean, I guess when you're. See, that sounds even more volatile. That sounds crazier because that's like a almost like more sudden, hostile thing. and then you're married to the person. But it's because the relationship started before the divorce, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. What I always think of like a breakup, I'm like, I need a palate cleanser here. I need like I got to reset a little bit here after a breakup.
I get. I think most people.
But I guess so. Are you now? You were like broken up, even though the divorce wasn't official. You were like.
Separate. I've been living with my girlfriend for over a year. My ex is dating someone. She's in a relationship for a year and
it's
a
amicable,
half now.
and you had the separation in a way already. So it's not like it just divorce takes a while.
Yeah, and it hasn't been super amicable, but we're getting there. I'm hopeful. But it's funny. So my girlfriend,
I can tell it wasn't amicable by the way when I asked you if you're married. You're like, fuck. I was like, oh shit, what did I just tap into here?
Yeah. Well, you asked.
I was like, I think I went the wrong way with this beginning of this.
You asked me in a very delicate window of time.
Well, just to be clear for anyone listening, I don't really know you.
Right? No.
You were referred to be a guest on the show by Ming, who runs a shared universe, because you used to podcast here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I know of you, and we got connected. So these questions feel like I'm like baiting you into like some.
No.
But it's not like I literally didn't know.
You would have no
idea.
And
because the topic of today's show is about arguing with your significant other, I just made an assumption that you were like in this. I don't know. I made an assumption that you were in this like 15-year marriage or something.
Yeah. No, well, I was up until yesterday.
Well, this is awkward. What's this movie about? Shit.
And what's interesting to add another wrinkle to it is, so my girlfriend is the girl I dated all through high school.
Oh, okay.
And then we broke up at the beginning of college.
Yeah.
And then went 20-something years without speaking, no contact, reconnected. Okay. And so that's also, I think, part of why I'm comfortable getting married quickly. It's like
you have a strong foundation with
this.
There's
we've known each other since we were 15. We know each other really well. And
thank God, because it's a much sweeter ending. I mean, I didn't know which way this was going.
Yeah.
That's a nice story though. So this is a friend of yours. You dated her all this time apart, and then you reconnected.
Yes.
At some point when the other relationship was sort of coming down, right?
Right.
Okay. Cool. All right. So that's the ending is less awkward than the beginning of the story.
That's probably the longest answer to that question you've ever gotten.
It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. But you're like, oh, what's your relationship status? The guy's like, well, fuck. All right. Well, there's because that is a complex story because you're not gonna ask you because it's the two relationships sort of like overlap a little in a way. You know what I mean? So now your wife and your ex-wife.
Yeah.
You're not the person you're married to in just like a minute later. Not like the person. I think this might be your bachelor party right now. I mean, fuck, I'm drinking.
They do an open mic at a strip club by me called Black Betty's, and I've already had a couple people reach out like, we should do your bachelor party at an open mic. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm almost 50. That's the saddest sentence.
Yeah. Right. It's sad and sadder than open mics usually are. Because honestly, asking me to go to an open mic, even at a comedy club, I'm like, fuck you.
A strip bar open mic sounds so like there can't be any.
There's no way that's good.
No.
There's no fucking way that's good. But like, are you opening? Is the open mic the opening for a strip show?
I don't know. I've never.
Or does it take the place of a strip show?
I don't know.
Because I gotta say, I had this conversation with Joe Pontillo about like when you're at a place expecting a thing and then a comedy show starts, how fucking miserable that is for the audience because they don't, That's not what they wanted to go there for. No. So is this like you go there for strippers and then you just gotta see some like fucking like just some dude who's like, I got divorced, I'm getting remarried in a minute, and they're like, oh God, this is my life too. I don't want your
some
shit.
Middle-aged dude, white dude doing Juneteenth jokes, and all they wanted to see was some titties.
Yeah. Like I just wanted to see, I definitely wanted to see black titties, but like I did not expect to go this route. So what I was going to say was, now your wife and 12 years, it comes to an end. There's obviously a lot of argument in the relationship, right? Like as there are even in healthy relationships. Yes. Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're expecting no drama, don't be in a relationship. If you're expecting not to argue. Yeah. I've been married to my wife for 7 years. I was with her 7 years prior. I've been with her for 14 years.
Oh yeah, so you're in it a long time.
Yeah, and you argue. There's no way around it. Like we have a really good, solid relationship, but there's just the days, like the bickering days. There's the days where you don't even know what the fuck you're arguing over. You know what I'm saying? Like there's the days where you're like, you just have an attitude with each other for no fucking reason.
Yes.
And I think that definitely kicks up a level with kids. Oh, yeah. Like once you have kids, because the stress level rises, the stakes of everything seem higher, even though what you're arguing about is so minuscule. Everything seems to have a greater, like sort of weight. Because, well, one, you're not even in the same mindset that you were before you had kids because you're more tired. Yeah. Than usual. I think that, like sleep deprivation is a fucking form of torture. And when you have a little kid, you're not in the right mindset. My wife and I started arguing in ways we never argued before. Like we argued before, but not in that way. Like it got brutal for a minute when my daughter was like firstborn because we're so fucking tired. She's got all this stuff she's going through, right? Like physically. Yeah. From having the kid in that first year. And then, on top of that, I'm just still me, which is already hard to deal with. Like I'm still who I am because I didn't have some giant bodily change. Like I have a life event that changed me, but I didn't have that.
Didn't wreck your body.
Right. And my hormones and all that, so like, I'm trying to be very aware of that in this moment with her. I'm trying to be very aware of be very empathetic about it. But, there's also the side of it where it's like, I'm still stubborn giddy. And I'm like, I still want to fucking win that argument. Like when she says, I'm like, no. It's like when I argue with anyone, I argue to win. Like I'm not.
Isn't it crazy that you'll argue to win even when it's at the detriment of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like even at some point you realize I don't even know if I need to win this, but
and the fact that when you're talking about relationship arguments, you don't need to win it.
No,
you don't have to win those arguments. It's a hard thing to, and I know that logically now. But if I go home later and my wife and I argue, I still want to win that argument.
Yeah,
it's something else. You go into argument mode.
Yes, but there's a lot of power in just being able to walk away from the argument too.
Look, I think eventually you do in a somewhat healthy relationship. You do at some point. It stops. You don't go until someone's bleeding. But you do go until the other person wants to make you bleed. You definitely push right to the edge sometimes because my mindset, when you're arguing, a lot of times in a relationship, there's two people. One person is, I find this a lot. I've just observed this a lot. One person is usually pretty tries to be very logical in their argument, and maybe the other person is a little more emotional in the argument. Yes. And that's not sex based, honestly. It's just what I see.
It could be either way. It could be either way. And it could switch. One day you could be the emotional one. It just depends. Yeah. Depends what the trigger was, I guess.
Completely. And it's I try to the foundation of the argument could be your emotion. You could be mad and that's why you're arguing. But I always try to not be mad in the tactic of the argument. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I try not to if I'm mad. If that's the emotion I'm feeling, I'm angry about something. I try not to be angry in my argument because disconnecting makes your argument more logical. Not that it fucking matters because you're not winning an argument clean slate against your wife. You're just not. But in your mind, you're like, but this is logical. What I'm saying is logical. There's no way she won't understand myself. And it's in the end, you both think you're right. Yeah. You're never going to change. It's like politics. You're never going to fucking really change someone's mind.
No.
You're just going to make a point best case scenario is you make a point where the other person doesn't have like a quick rebuttal. Like,
Yes.
you know, like that's the biggest win is that the person just doesn't go, no, you're wrong. They just go, oh. And they're like, see, you know I'm right.
Yeah. That was the big, when I would argue with my ex, that was the biggest problem. It's just, we were both stubborn and there would be no, the community, even in the good years, the communication skills probably weren't what they should have been, you know?
Yeah. Right. That's a big thing.
That's not anybody's fault. That's just how, you know, two people work together.
Yeah.
And, so I would have trouble with that because I would, hey, if I present enough evidence, there's no way she's not going to be able to see my point. My girlfriend now is a lawyer. So
you've got your work ahead of you with the win of those arguments.
Yeah, but I do find because she's a lawyer that if I present her with enough evidence and logic, it can change her mind.
She treats it like a court case?
No, but
are you not allowed to interrupt each other because she has her turn at the jury and you have yours? You know, is it like I'm not done with my statement. This is my opening argument. You can't interrupt that.
Yeah, but I do find like if I can bring her enough, if I can present enough logic. Not always in that moment, you know, because if she's, and sometimes for sure I'm the emotional one, so it goes both ways. But sometimes if she's in the middle of that, like the emotion, she may not see it, but she'll always circle back to me a day or two later and be like, all right, I've calmed down. I've given it some thought. I see your points.
Here's my rebuttal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But that sounds a lot healthier.
Yes.
You know, the cool off, and it, you know, this is a hard one, but I just knocked the fucking picture off the wall. This is a hard one, but admitting you were either admitting you were wrong or admitting that maybe you weren't fully thinking it through because you were upset is a hard thing to do.
Yes.
When you're arguing with your significant other, because there's like, you know, your intention of the original argument. It's not that you're trying to like hurt them, but you're trying to get your point across and they're trying to get their point across. And both of you, a lot of times, you're just not understanding. You can't come that far around in the argument. But sometimes after the cool down, you can. I think in that's the best case scenario. In like in a relationship that's maybe a little more toxic, I've certainly been in those too. You don't ever concede.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And when you've got two people who will not concede, it's war.
Yes.
You know?
Conceding.
Or even withdraw a little bit.
Yeah. For me, I will, if it's not something I'm that passionate about, if it's, I will throw myself into the sword so fast. Mm-hmm. Like I will immediately.
You're quick to be like,
I'm quick to be like, you know what? That's my bad.
Yeah.
I fucked this up.
Right.
And I find, like if you can take, and I don't always even mean it, you know, but sometimes I just see like, I don't care as much about the outcome of this as she does.
I'm much quicker to apologize for sure in like a service to the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you just got to do that. Even if you're like, in your mind, you know you're right. If the outcome's not that important to you, just give them the win.
I also think too, like in my mind, I know I'm right, but in her mind, she knows she's right. And we're saying no as if it's fact, right? Because in your mind, you really do believe when you're in those arguments, there's no way I'm fucking wrong about this.
No.
But my logic is so fucking sound. And if that person, let's say, is the more emotional type, they're like, there's no way I'm wrong about this because I have a right to be upset. And both are valid in a way. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just got to withdraw and be like, you know what? Sorry I got there. Even if I'm not saying the words I was wrong, I'm like, I'm sorry. Because the right or wrong at a certain point doesn't matter anymore. It's like, what are we going to just fucking fight for days?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I've had those too in like previous relationships where you do just fight for days and like you wake up and just couldn't pick up the fight.
Yes.
You know? And you're like, oh, it's so exhausting, dude.
Yeah.
It's so tiring to fight like that.
Yes.
Oh, the argument can't end in the one session. That's a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, like in my previous marriage, it would just be like, it would go on for days, but it would go on for days like passively, you know? So it would be like, oh, I'm on day 3 of a silent treatment, so this isn't over. But also, like, silent treatment's not that bad. It's like,
it's better than fighting.
I could do this standing on my head.
Anyone who says you can't go to sleep angry at each other doesn't like, that's too lofty. You can go to sleep like, because sometimes going to sleep mad at each other means you finally stopped arguing.
Yes.
So now you could cool off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're not going to cool off in front of the person.
Right.
You need the moment. You gotta take separation from it and cool off.
Yeah. And you have to learn that too. Like, you have to learn that there's something actually, like, there's strength in being like, let's hit the pause button. Yeah. Nothing's getting accomplished.
Now, let me ask you something, because you hit on something that I find very interesting. This is very intricate, but like, if you are the kind of person who will be like, cool off, you said you'll fall on the sword quicker.
Yeah.
If you're that kind of person, when you are with someone who is not like that, do you end up resenting that they don't sometimes meet you halfway like that?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That was
like, I'm always apologizing, you know, like that kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, for sure. Yeah. And because then you look at yourself and you're like, well, wait a minute. Why am I always taking accountability and this other person won't, you know?
And then you start resenting, and then you go, well, fuck that, because now it always seems like I'm wrong.
Right.
You know? But that gets into a little bit of the like almost competition of it, which is bad. That's when you're in a bad place usually. You're like, I'm not going to, now I can't say I'm wrong. Like, I'm not going to, you go through that in your head. You're like, no, from now on, I'm not doing that anymore. Right? Did you ever go there? Did you ever have that moment with yourself?
Yeah.
When you're in a bad relationship and you go, I'm not doing that anymore. I do it too much. They're not admitting it. Now they're going to constantly think they're right because I always say sorry. Like, they have to meet me halfway on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You resent them for that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like if you feel like you're actually putting work in, you know, like I went to therapy. I was like, I gotta learn how to, not that I've got a quick temper, but I'm almost like a steam valve. Like, I'm very, I'm very like easygoing. And I'll take, especially going through a divorce where I was the one that wanted to leave, I feel like I can take a lot of shit. I can take it on the chin. I'll take it. I'll take it.
And you're like, we got to finalize this divorce. I'm getting married in 6 days.
But then it starts building up, and it's like the pressure builds, and then sometimes I just got to revert back. Oh, why don't you just go fuck yourself? I've had, you know, and then it's like you let the steam out, and then I'm like, okay, I can start over. Taking it again some more.
I'm pretty quick in life. Like, I definitely have a temper, and I think much like the way when I drink, like not the temper thing and the drinking thing together. I'm just like the comparison. Like I'm the kind of person who can get very drunk but still be very logical. I don't like get into fights and scream.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I'm the same way.
I'm very like it's almost, someone described me once as like the scene in a James Bond movie where he gets drugged and he totally has his wits about him, but he just physically can't do it. You know, he's like very sluggish. A friend of mine said that to me once. He's like, you never say obnoxious shit. He's like, I hear you slurring, and I know you're there, but you're still you. You maintain that. There's no level of drunk or high where I completely lose my mind and say things I would have never said.
Yeah, that's so.
I don't get there.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I'm the same way in an argument. I could be mad, but I don't like. I'm big in relationships. I had this conversation with Craig Baldo was in, and we talked about this with I'm a big believer in like, don't name call in a relationship. Don't call your wife a bitch. She shouldn't call you a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, you might curse and you might say, and you might tell that person what you think of them in a brutal way, but there is a level of like respect that I think couples, you see them fighting out in the streets, like, who are just like, yeah, fucking cunt. And, you know, when couples are there and they do that often, there is a level of respect that whenever in their timeline got broken. And you don't really get it back, I think, when you get there. When you get to that point, when you get to the point where you're really name calling each other and then you're being mean.
Yeah.
It's hard to ever go back to a place where you don't do that. Like, unless you've got therapy and stuff to work it out. And sometimes that's only a temporary hold. That's a very Serenity Now thing too. It's like I'm going to the therapist is telling me to do this, but I want to fucking, and so me and my wife were always big on, like, it was a pretty unspoken rule with us. It was like, we don't go there. We don't go to the name call. Now, granted, after kids, the rules of the game change.
It's like, just go fuck yourself. I'm not calling you a name.
Right.
I've gotten there. I've been like hey, fuck you, go fuck you. But I've never gone into.
Right. My wife and I will do the like, and more her, because I'm still, it's different. When you're a guy, it's like, when you go there, you sound like you almost sound violent, even if you're not. When you're a guy and you start cursing at a woman, you sound like a psychopath, and I'm always very aware of that. So, like, even if I'm really mad, I'm not like, fuck you, bitch. Like, I don't do that. I don't do that even in my worst, but I, what I like to do? I like to, if I'm going to say something about my wife, I give her an insult that I would give a guy as opposed to one I would give that would typically be reserved for a woman. Like I don't call her a bitch or yeah.
I feel like you small dick.
Yeah. I'm like,
jerk off.
Yeah. You have a tiny dick and you're just like your father. My point is, I'll be like, you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a thing guys say to each other or women say to guys, but men don't really say to women.
Yeah, you're a dick.
You're a dick, right? Yeah. Like, you're a dick. You're a jerk. That's like, I will say that because it feels like it holds less weight. It's not as vicious.
Yeah.
It's like calling a woman a bitch or a cunt is in a way, it's almost like, it's not quite this, but it's almost like a slur. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to hurt them with something that society is reserved for, like, vicious moments of that person.
Yeah.
And so I'm quicker to be like, God, you're being such an asshole right now. And it doesn't seem to affect her that much. She's like, well, and then she'll make her, like, that doesn't feel as vicious.
It's not as personal. It's more personal. It's gender neutral.
It's not right. It's gender neutral. Very progressive of me, isn't it?
Not saying I'm a progressive hero, but I call my wife an asshole instead of a cunt.
Right. She identifies as an asshole. She might have been born a cunt, but she identifies as an asshole.
Let me be clear. She's definitely a cunt, but I'll call her whatever she identifies as.
No, the cunt is, like, literally a word I've never used that toward. I've only used that towards guys, like, kidding around.
Yeah.
In a very, like, almost British way. But I don't use that word to, like, slam a woman because, that's going for it. You're going for a big one there. And look, we're comics, like, words are just words.
Yeah.
And they're all valid words. Like, there's no word you shouldn't be able to use in life, but you still got to understand the consequences of using those words. Like, you can't just say that and expect your wife to not fucking lose her mind. And nothing about the way I argue with my wife ever makes me want to use that word. I'm not, like, there mentally and I'm holding, like, I don't ever want to call her that. I never will. But, like, if I'm trying, my point was about the name calling, like, before kids, I wouldn't have even been like, you're being an asshole. I wouldn't have done that. I had no name calling, zero, ever. It never happened, and she was good about it too. And so, rules change after kids. You have kids, right?
Yes, I have.
See how clearly you answered that one, and it was like, well,
yeah, well, today,
well, there might be some out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and then my girlfriend has a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old, all daughters.
Okay. Well, good luck to you.
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old daughter as well, but I've not reached the age yet where, like, the things that I dreaded about having daughters, none of that's come up yet.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. I mean, mine's 8, so none of that's come up yet either. But I see it happening. In
teenage years. Yeah. Teenage girl. I mean, just fucking kill me now. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm so afraid of that. I'm so afraid of my daughter being a teenager.
I used to do this joke before my daughter was born about how, like, I wanted a daughter. Like, I knew that, like, first off, when you're a dude and you have a girl, you can always be good cop. Like, you don't have to bad cop a girl.
Yeah.
I think you can only bad cop your gender. And So I used to do this joke about how like I wanted a little girl, but it's like the idea of a teenage girl is terrifying. And I don't know what I can do about it. So like I'm just keeping my fingers crossed the kid's transgender.
Right. Yeah. The best case scenario.
Like, day before her 15th birthday, she's just like, hey, I'm Daryl now. And I'm going to be like, that's fucking great news.
Yeah. Go fuck someone. This is great. This is great. All of a sudden now, I don't mind you. I don't mind you sleeping around because now you're a dude. And there was, do you know the comedian Mark DeMeo?
Yeah, I love Mark.
So I've known Mark a long time. He used to do a bit about his. I don't remember the exact joke, but he used to do a bit about like wanting to fatten his daughter up. As like she was starting to get male attention, he wanted to like fatten her up because he wanted her to like not be a stripper and not be. Like... But yeah, it's like but you know, having a kid really changes the relationship dynamic a lot. In that you are tired, you are sleep deprived, and now you're like, I mean, there's so many arguments that happen now that are just about being parents.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you now have different types of arguments you used to. Where you used to, I mean, my wife and I used to argue about, you know, sometimes like just like what we wanted to do or the way we thought about a situation. But now it's like, well, we actually need to come to a solution on this because this is like a parenthood argument. You can't just concede. I think that's probably part of the problem too. You can't just concede on things as easily as when you argue about other shit. Because when you're arguing about parenthood, you have to come to a solution for the benefit of your child.
Yes.
So there's no falling on a sword, really. If you really feel strongly about something,
you got to duke it out.
You got to duke it out.
And you know what? I think there's like an undercurrent. Like there's another argument taking place that nobody ever really addresses. And it's like, if you're in a good, happy relationship before the kid, you're probably like, there's nobody on the planet I love more than my wife or my husband.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a kid comes along and you're like, oh, it's stupid how much more I love this kid than that person.
It is like night and day, and you don't...
And no one talks about it, but it's there, right?
And you know what's the thing is, like, I can logically tell you that I love my wife as much as I loved her before our kid.
Right.
I don't love her less.
Right.
But I love that kid so fucking much that no one's touching that. And I know my place.
Yeah.
My daughter,
and your wife's feeling the same.
Me?
Yeah.
My wife would kick me off a mountainside before she let a mosquito bite my daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and that is by the way, it's the right way to think. That is absolutely the way you should think.
Yeah.
Your kid is not only your responsibility to society to raise this kid, but there is just, you know, you hear it before you become a parent. People go like, oh, you'll never love anything like you love your kid. Like you hear that and you just think they're being nice about it. Like,
yeah.
I always thought that was a little bit like, okay, yeah, no, I understand I love my kid. But like, I didn't really understand it until the day that kid was born. And I looked at, and it was like, fuck everyone else. No one else matters in this world.
Yeah.
Literally no one else. So then you've got this person who you do love, you know, and you have this person who, you know, you have argued with, you will argue with more. You know, the relationship, you hear this a lot, but like is work, you know, like you have to like really sacrifice and stuff. And now you're like, especially in the first few years, you're like, I'm not even sacrifice for like, that's not the sacrifice. Every sacrifice now is for this kid.
Yeah.
You know, so your whole perspective, your priority changes. And yeah, you know, you hit on it. You can't love a significant other the way you love your kid. It's a very different love.
Yeah.
So you don't, you know, you become less tolerant of them, of your significant other, because you like are like, it doesn't matter. That's my priority. Sorry, not anymore. Bye. That's not what matters anymore. You know, and in the end, it does still matter, of course. And you know, it's like you want your kid to also see a healthy relationship. You don't want your kid to see you arguing all the time either.
Right.
Like, so you got that part of it too. But you know, my kid at 3 years old has seen my wife and I argue. We try to like reserve it and come back to it later, which is good because you end up cooling down by the time you come back to it.
Yes.
And then you have a logical conversation.
That's what I'm saying. Like
you start bubbling up, and then you see your kid there.
Button.
And now my kid's at an age where she's like, "What are you talking about? Tell me." And I'm like, "Well, Mommy's being an asshole. No. So you don't do that, right?
Mommy's a cunt, but I'm calling her an asshole to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Now you're old enough to know.
The word it's
you're
called
half
being
Italian
diplomatic.
and half cunt.
It's called being diplomatic.
Yeah.
Let's start to understand this concept.
Yeah. You know what's funny for me is it's like I probably, if I hadn't had a kid, I probably could have just stayed married. But it was...
Yeah, sure.
It was...
So that amped it up for you?
Yeah, like, and then after having the kid, and it's like, then I really, it's like I'd kind of suspected I wasn't happy, but then having the kid sort of accelerated that, I guess, because it's like, I was in a marriage where I didn't feel like me anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Sure.
And I hadn't felt like me in a long time. And I probably could have made peace with that. But then a kid comes along and then you start feeling like, oh, I want this kid to know the best version of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to feel like me around this kid.
Yeah. And the mind fuck of having a kid too is it's hard to understand if the person you're with is the reason why you don't feel like you. Or if it's just the exhaustion of having a kid, because having a kid also temporarily makes you feel like not you, but in a much different way.
Yeah.
Not like when you're with a person who makes you feel like you're not you, that means that like you're in a bad place. But but when you have a kid, there's a moment when you have your first kid, I think you have a moment where you kind of your whole identity changes for a minute. And not for a minute. It kind of just evolves who you are. You become a different person, really. And people who don't have kids will look at that as like a negative thing. Like, well, fuck that. I don't want to have kids then. Or, well, you lost yourself. Like, you don't have to lose yourself. No, you will. You will change. And it is inevitably a good thing.
Yes.
Because it usually puts you on, at least as guys, like it puts us on a better path than we were in. It really does. Like, I mean, my priorities before I had a kid are laughable. It's like a different person. I look back at that person, I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. That me.
Yeah.
Me 4 years ago is a fucking asshole.
When you thought comedy was the most important thing on the planet.
Yeah, right. When it was like
nothing was going to get in your way of telling dick jokes to like 9 people on a Tuesday.
Yeah, right. And now you're like, well, fuck it. If I had to quit tomorrow, I would. If I don't want to.
Yeah.
You don't have to sacrifice everything in your life. But it does change your priorities of things, and it does make you go like, well, fuck it. Nothing else really matters as much as this kid, right? And so it's a little bit of a mind fuck, is my point. The first year, you're sleep deprived, your priorities are changing, you really are kind of losing yourself for a minute. Now, if you're in a relationship also where then you don't have that safety net of that person's got my back, now you feel it's not something I experienced, but like I think what you're saying is like now you feel that doubly, like you really don't know who you are anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're dealing with the stress and the priority change of having a kid, and then you've got the relationship that's going badly, and between the two, you're like, well, who the fuck am I? Right? That's a hard moment.
Yes. Yeah, but I think. Listen, I think it's like you said, they're rough changes, but once you settle into it, you realize how much better that changes. I remember thinking like, I could take or leave having a kid,
Yeah.
I like if it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't.
Right.
I have comedy either way. I'll be all right.
That's my kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kid who abuses me somehow.
But then you have
comedy
a kid.
is much more of a drug addiction than a kid.
Yes. It really is. You're just chasing.
It's not good.
You're just chasing highs, and you got to hang out with people. It's like drug dealers. It is. That's a great analogy because it's like now you're hanging out with people you don't even really want to be hanging out with that much.
But they're the people that have the common.
But they're the people that can get your fix. That can get you your fix. You remember everybody had that weed dealer that just wouldn't shut up, and you would just be like, "Oh, just fucking give me my weed." Yes. It's like, just imagine just being surrounded with the talkative weed dealers.
Right. I mean, look at this. We don't even know each other. Like, why are we in the same room right now? Why are you here? I don't know. I mean, you seem great.
Yeah.
You're funny. But, like, do we have no business being in the same room together?
Yeah.
We don't live anywhere near each other.
Yeah, but it's weird. You're like, oh, maybe this will like kick my adrenaline up. For
but you know what? Yeah, but when you're with comic, you don't have the arguments. I mean, you might argue with a friend who's a comic, but like you don't. It's a much different mentality. You're on people who are on the same, similar like vibration as you. You know what I mean? Like you're operating on the same level. When you're with your soon-to-be wife, I'm only laughing because of the timeline. When you're with her, are you? Are you guys arguing a lot? Are you having just more logical arguments?
We don't. I mean, we used to argue when the first time around.
When you were still married.
When we were. Yeah, that was a big argument. Like, why do you still have a wife? Why do you?
That's not things that all couples argue about. Yeah, like sometimes you could be like arguing over dinner.
Yeah.
And sometimes you argue over why the other person is still married.
We would argue a lot like in the 90s when the first time around. We were always like making up, breaking up, making up.
The way you said that made it sound like it was a 90s epidemic. It's like right after Saved by the Bell, we used to fucking have it out. Right. But your first round of a relationship with this person.
It was constantly arguing, and then even when we reconnected, it's like we started falling into some old patterns.
Yeah. And
plus, I had the pressure of I was separated, trying to get this divorce. I wasn't moving as fast as I would have liked, or any of us would have liked.
Yeah. Just because of the legal process of it all.
Yep. So, it'd be tough, man. I'd be like arguing with my wife, and then my girlfriend would see me arguing with my wife, and then why are you, so it was like, oh my God, like I'm arguing. Yeah. I'm arguing with my ex-wife and my soon-to-be wife, like concurrently, like I'm doing it at the same time.
If there's hell, I think that would be it. You would have two wives essentially.
Yeah,
you're in purgatory. Maybe it's purgatory. Maybe this is what purgatory is like. You have a soon-to-be ex-wife and a soon-to-be wife, and you're arguing both of them on the opposite sides of the phone.
Yeah. It was just some days you were just like, I'm never ever getting through this. But my girlfriend and I realized like we have to learn how to argue, because we're arguing like we did when we were 15.
Right.
And that's not, and we actually were like, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but we were like, fuck it. We went to couples therapy. Yeah. And we were like, just teach us how to resolve.
I think it's great that you're saying that, because I think if anyone in a relationship was going through it, was listening, fucking do that shit, man. Go to couples therapy. If you care about salvaging that relationship, don't be the one that gets dragged, like be in it.
Yeah.
Right. Would you say that? Like, you got to commit to that.
It took, I'm doing my own therapy just so I could learn how to, I'm trying to learn how to argue with my ex-wife better,
Right.
Like I don't want it to dissolve into, like texts assaults, I don't want it to, I want peace. So for me,
you have kids together, you got to maintain some respect for each other.
And
for sure.
My daughter is through all of this, and my daughter saw us fighting. She saw some of the ugliness, but through all of this, my kid has been incredibly well adjusted. Really happy. She gets along with my ex's boyfriend and, their life. And she loves my girlfriend and her kids, and at some point you feel like, well, we're playing Russian roulette here a little bit with the kid. Like so far she's unscathed, so let's learn how to keep it like that. And if we keep arguing, if we keep arguing, and listen, I'm guilty of it. Like some days I'm the asshole, some days I'm the one starting it, and I got to get better at that. Yeah. So I was in therapy just learning how to do that on my own. And then I'm like, now I got to go twice a week.
Right.
But we started couples therapy, and they just started teaching us how to argue.
Yeah.
And it has, it's improved things. I couldn't recommend it enough if you thought you needed it.
And you just said something that I think opened up my eyes to understanding your situation a little more, which is that you argue so much. When you argue so much with a person, like let's say you and your ex, like you actually, I think it helps me understand how you both moved on. What seems really quickly, you both have other people before you were like officially divorced. But when you argue so much with a person, you kind of start breaking up while you're in the relationship. Mm-hmm. You start, and then the breakup isn't even hard, in a way. I mean, it might be hard, but like not. You don't mourn the relationship because you mourned it already while you were in it. You had a moment in your mind when you were like, I need to get out of this.
Yep.
Right? And that person, whether they came to that conclusion at the same time as you, probably not at the same exact time, but you both came to a conclusion that this is not it. Right? This is going to have to move on. So you actually move on from the relationship while you're still in it. Because it's a lot harder to end the relationship than it is to mentally leave the relationship. Right. So you leave it mentally before you physically leave it. And so in that situation, I think it helps me understand too, like, okay, well, that's probably why you guys were both able to move on and you just finalized your divorce because the relationship was over.
Yes.
It was over.
Yeah.
And then, the divorce takes a long time. But even if you're not in a divorce, if you're just like in a dating situation, sometimes it's hard to say like, this is it. I'm gone today. It's hard to do that sometimes in a breakup, but you could mentally already be out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what, an argument, I mean, you get like the bricks are falling off the house, man.
Yes.
Like, when you are arguing like that.
Yep.
And
they were arguments that they never went anywhere.
They didn't resolve anywhere.
Because we weren't hearing each other, So it's like, I would always describe the arguments. It's almost like if you tried watching two movies at the same time. It's just two completely different. She's not hearing me. She's pushing her point. I'm not hearing her. Yeah. I'm pushing my point. Nothing's resolved. It's like watching an episode of The View or something. Like everyone's just talking over each other. Yeah, everyone's just talking over each other and nothing's getting heard.
Also, you were married to Whoopi Goldberg. Back to the original argument. Ken, thanks so much for coming on, man. This was a lot of fun. We're going to do another episode together as well. And this is great. Can you, any plugs you have? Do you want to promote any show dates, any projects you have going on?
Yeah, because this will definitely be up on the website by the time this comes out. But I'm recording. Do you know Sergio Chacon?
Very
great
well,
comic.
Yeah.
Sergio is a great friend of mine. So we're recording specials together. We're each going to shoot half an hour.
That's awesome. Sergio, man. I don't want to interrupt your plug. I just have to. Sergio's one of those dudes. He's been around a long time. He was very nice to me when I first started out. Yeah. Very kind, hilarious motherfucker.
Yes.
And like, I want everyone to fucking know who Sergio is because I feel like when you watch him do his thing, you're like, this fucking dude should be on top of the world. Like, honestly, he is. He's one of those guys like. I was mentioned off mic, like Canal Aurora, where they're definitely moving up, and they're great, and they're sharp, and their comedy is they're also so New York, both of those guys, and they're like, you just are like, everyone needs to know about these two. They're the two dudes in the New York scene that I just want more people to know about.
Yeah,
and New York, New Jersey. I know you're a Jersey guy too. I didn't mean to insult our neighbor.
That's all right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this whole interview.
We can go to couples therapy and work it out.
You and I can work it out. But yeah. Love Sergio.
Yeah. So we're filming. We're each shooting half an hour. Have you been to the dojo yet? The dojo
I've not been there.
Comedy?
No, I've not. I like a lot of guys I know work the dojo. I haven't been.
It's the dojo in Morris Plains. It has quietly become one of the absolute best comedy clubs on the planet.
Yeah, I hear a ton about it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should be able to go to the website and
wait. So which website? Sorry.
Oh, dojos. Sorry.
Okay.
Just fucking Google dojo. You'll be able to.
You're such a comic. You're like, I'm not gonna do this work for you.
What am I, guy? You're not coming anyway. You're not gonna hear this and be like, oh my god, I gotta go see this guy.
No. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So it's not gonna be Dojo Comedy's website.
Yeah, I think it's tiffscomedy.com.
Well, now you're confusing me.
Well, it's at a restaurant called Tiff's. Okay. The
so
Dojo's
wait, on
upstairs.
Dojo's site, it will be on the Dojo Comedy site?
Saturday, September 21st.
Oh, gotcha. Tiff's Comedy, TIFFS
Yeah.
comedy.com is the website.
Yeah.
Understood. Gotcha. That was such a comic plug. Like, that's the way they're like, just, fucking find it. It'll be out there. But that's cool, man. So that'll be on September.
Yes.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is a bit too much on all the social, a bit too much podcast and all the socials, and a bit, too much on YouTube and wherever podcasts are heard. Like, subscribe, and comment. I want to start getting some topics from fans who are listening to the show and want to hear us, myself and another comic, talk about certain comments. So please comment. It'll be a cool thing to start incorporating that into the show. So this is a bit too much. Thank you.